Again, with Michael Canciglia, I've had two other students demonstrate a few things. I used some of the videos you
Okay,
did.
good. Yeah.
And we're back with Michael Canciglia. And the last time we were doing the mental determinations, which are extremely, extremely important. I'm going to complete that. And I think I know where you stopped. However, there are two things I want to catch up on that we didn't do. This is like for your own benefit. One of them is being there number one drill, and the other one is the magnetic statement. Although I go through it quite a bit in lesson 3, we need to repeat that once again for you. Okay, so let's go to open up with the mental determinations on page 276.
Okay.
76. Do you remember the last one you did? I think it was the one on love and sex.
That would be...
Yeah, read that one.
I will not permit in myself any disrespect for the opposite sex in general, as is so often found in small talk from the mouths of characterless people.
Right. That's a good thing because, you know, people talk about sex always with tongue-in-cheek, you know, sex is a natural function. Why should people laugh and do funny things? They make jokes out of it. They make sex tasteless. They make it, it should be an enjoyable thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Between two people that like each other. Obviously, if you don't like each other, you're not going to enjoy it. All right, go on to the next one.
19, I am...
You might want to speak a little bit louder.
Okay, 19, I am fully aware that nature, in its scheme of renewing the species, sets up the sexual appetite in both sexes, and that many people waste valuable time, money, and peace of mind chasing after sex.
Right.
But I will avoid being used in this scheme by retaining absolute awareness of my inclinations and desires and maintaining balance.
That's a very important one. We need to take that one apart. Magnetism teaches that there are 4 appetites. And we lose advantage in life because we become slaves of those appetites. Those appetites are actually survival instincts for us to survive. But you as a master magnetist, you have to go beyond those 4 appetites. You have to go to the point where you actually are in charge of those 4 basic instincts. Because nature to a great extent is blind. It's beautiful, but it's ugly also. That's on the physical side. Nature has some of the spiritual in it, but it's mainly a physical thing. So the 4 appetites are the sexual appetite, the stomach appetite, the greed appetite, you know, and the spiritual appetite. These are appetites that are instincts, and if the person doesn't take charge of them, they become weaker through those 4 appetites.
Now, when you say take charge, are you saying like that someone spends too much of their time on one of them, so they're not in charge of it, or what do you?
Could be one, or most people are not in charge of all of them.
Right.
When they get hungry, they eat. You know, there's no end. They don't have power over it.
Right.
Sex, you know, they become sex maniacs.
Right.
Or they don't use philosophy in the sexual act. They don't use aesthetics in the physical act. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
The greed, oh my God, that's a bad one. That's everywhere.
Right.
especially in America. People have enough, but they gotta have more, and more, and more. So they get up in the morning and they don't have time to do their 15-minute meditation, which I consider extremely necessary to live life.
That should be like the very first thing you do.
First thing in the morning.
Yeah.
We'll get more into that later. I just want to get back to this one here. So you got these four appetites,
Right.
and sex is one of them. And what was the thing that you mentioned? Oh, so nature has these tricks of making you get horny, as it were, desiring that sex, but that's the instinct to keep the race going, to keep new bodies coming into the world. So nature does all kinds of little tricks like that. So a master magnetist sees the value of it, but he also sees the negative aspect of it, so he chooses that which is the better side of the appetite. So he knows that nature has implanted, for example, has implanted in woman this instinct of showing her, so making herself desirable for the man. And that's how the race keeps going. And the man has taken advantage also of the fact that he's the man, therefore he's in charge, and he becomes macho and control and all of that. So, let's see, nature. Okay, so what you want to do is know this and don't respond to the aspect of the instinct which is detrimental. You follow me?
Yeah.
If anything you don't follow, because this stuff is difficult to explain, all these things,
Right.
these philosophical things. And in my estimation, it's the philosophy behind certain actions that make it work. See? And how did that one end towards the end?
I will avoid being used in this scheme by retaining absolute awareness
Yeah.
of my inclinations
Yeah.
and desires and maintaining balance.
Yeah, notice that I put down aware of it, because sometimes the instinct is so strong that it's difficult to control. So you want to be aware of it. I like to be, for example, turned on sexually looking at a beautiful woman. That's fine. We all feel that way. And sometimes it's very, very strong, but you have to be aware of it, so that as long as you're aware of it, you are in control of the direction of it. That's all. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay, yeah.
It's these determinations are the best I've ever seen on this planet. They're not mine. They were Webster Edgerly's, but I changed it quite a bit because the way he had it was very old-fashioned. Like this was written at the turn of the century. So now they're a little bit more in keeping with the evolvement of man up to 2011.
Okay, so number 20.
20? Okay.
Where greed may induce others to take advantage of me, I will develop the mental attitude of being 100% suspicious of all dealings with people who are not known to me.
Right. And that's where I mentioned this last week.
Yeah, I remember
People
that,
will
yeah.
say, man, that's a hell of a way to live. Well, it is. But you're not hurting anyone. You're only protecting yourself and your family. Because you don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, sometimes your first impression of someone is different from after a while where you see who they really are,
that's right.
you know. So it's good to get
Well, I'll tell you this, if you employ these determinations and other things in this course, you get to the point where you will read people very well. If, for example, excuse me, if you were not suspicious of someone, as far as trust goes, you probably wouldn't be able to read that person is not to be trusted. But if you have a suspicion that you're still not hurting the person, that suspicion will help you to see if there's something wrong there.
So if I understand these determinations, it's going to allow me to better read people. This is the main
absolutely.
advantage of...
Well, not the main.
Or what would you say, actually, as far as understanding these determinations and integrating them would provide?
Protection.
Protection.
Protection. People don't know that. They think that they go around talking about how beautiful the flowers in the sun, we're living in such a beautiful earth. Well, it is. But there's a very negative, bad, black side to it.
Right. So when you say protection, what do you mean by that?
Protecting yourself from the appetites of nature itself. Appetites of low quality people.
Right.
A low quality criminal is much worse than a poor dog out there.
And I would imagine this would be also involved with like even negative conversations that can throw you off course as well.
Yep.
Right, yeah.
That's right. The way you handle negative conversation is not to react.
Right.
You listen very carefully. Like, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
This actually happened. As we mentioned last week, I believe, at least it's in lesson 3, I think it was lesson 3, I really believe everything I say. And I believe it so strongly that I say it with authority. And if it's not important enough, or I'm not sure of it, I won't say anything.
Right, right.
But what I say, I demand silently that others pay attention. Therefore, my first job is to draw their attention to me. Because if I can't get attention, I can't direct them.
Ah, yeah, absolutely.
And everywhere you go, you're dealing with other people.
Right.
You in the school, in the school system, you have to deal with the principal and the crazy teachers and this and that and the system, and you have to be a master to handle all of that. Especially if you are on the path of hidden knowledge, which all magnetists are. On that path, you're no longer part of this earth. Maybe not at this point in the study.
Right.
But when you finish the last part of course 5A, it's almost like you don't belong on earth anymore.
Hmm.
You're here, but it's a whole different thing. Those are some of the things that I'm trying to figure out now. For example, in relationship to my children, to my family, things like that, it's difficult. But you have to be right there handling it all the time. Is that did I answer your question or what?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, number 21, I will not wrap my judgment of values by receiving more than a fair exchange for what I pay in any dealing.
What's the third word?
The third word is not.
Not what?
Warp.
Oh, warp. That's the one I was after.
Right.
Warp, okay. Read it again, please.
So, I will not warp my judgment of values by receiving more than a fair exchange for what I pay in any dealing.
Yeah, that's one that I really revised. I'm not going to hurt myself. I'm not going to hurt my judgment. I'm not going to hurt my abilities by being a liar and charge more than what my services are worth. That's all it means. Because you're hurting yourself. If you do that, you hurt yourself. Like I was telling you about the repairman. He charges, I can't say that he's the cheapest,
Right.
but he does not overcharge. I mean, his work, I marvel at watching him work. He's like me. He's a, I don't know what you call, electrician maybe, and I'm a teacher. But our works are the same. I mean, I don't consider him just a workman. The guy is, he's got the ability. He's got the pride in his work. See? So that's the story there. You don't want to hurt yourself by committing little crimes.
Okay, number 22. I will not cause loss to any person by selling anything at an unfair price.
Right, that's obvious. But,
Right.
okay, we already discussed that.
23. I will not take advantage of the financial embarrassment or distress of any person in order to gain something to which I am not entitled in the fair exchange of values.
Right, that's clear also. You don't want to spoil your values by overcharging and all of that, okay? And that's how you maintain your, that's how you maintain your integrity.
Right, yeah.
And you have to have ethics to maintain your power. The fastest way to lose your power is to give up, don't be not careful with your ethics. You got to keep those ethics. I mean, we're not perfect. We all make mistakes, but as best as we can.
24. I will not sign or co-sign a financial note for another person, nor be responsible for another, even friends. My duty to myself and my family takes priority.
Right, that's clear also. I do not recommend signing loans for other people. Each one is responsible for himself. Now, somebody that you care a lot for, you might want to give him a hand, but don't get it out of line, because when it comes to money, people get weird.
Yeah, and I don't think you're really helping them if you're co-signing for them. It's because that's really saying that they're not ready for what it is. They you know.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's really helping.
I would not sign for anybody, because that's part of the lessons that they have to learn in the reform school. This reform school right here.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. 25. I will not seek an investment in products or services that contribute to the downfall of civilization, even if it promises a super high rate of interest.
Okay. I would not invest, let's say 25%. I would not invest in a drug company. I would not invest in an alcohol company, because those things damage man.
Right.
I would not invest in anything that is counter survival, against life. There, I would accept a smaller amount of interest in something which is good.
Right. 26. I will so manage my finances as to retain 10% of all money I earn.
That we already discussed.
As savings, no matter what. Right.
You gotta save that 10%, and then your goal is $10,000, and you never, never, never touch that $10,000 unless it's a matter of life or death. I don't care about the air conditioner. I don't care about anything. That money goes, part of you goes with it. I'm sorry, but that's the way it works.
So that money is what? Used for
It's your investment
investment.
in yourself.
Right.
When that money goes, now you don't have it. Unless you, let's say that you got the $10,000 in the bank, and then you make a deal and you make, say, $500,000. Well, then that's a different story. You got enough to keep you going.
Right.
But even so, I would start a different account for 10%. Just for the principle of it. But if you had that much money, $500,000, you wouldn't have to worry too much about that.
Right.
But if you don't have more than, let's say, $100,000, we have to be specific on these things. I'd say that with $200,000, you can survive pretty well if you know how to manage your money. And that's not being rich, but but it's okay. So if you had $100,000, $200,000, you might not bother holding on to the 10,000 if you needed to, let's say, buy another house or something like that. But if you have less than $100,000, I would not touch the 10,000.
Now, would this change over time?
What do you mean?
Like, obviously, in 5 years, would you still go with that number 10,000, or as economy changes and all that,
Yeah, life,
value of things change, you know?
Yeah, like I said, 5 years later you might have 100,000, in
Right,
which case
right.
you don't have to worry about the 10,000 anymore.
Right, right.
But I would say under 100,000, keep up the 10% and do not touch the $10,000.
Right. Okay.
Actually, there's a psychic principle behind which I haven't proven to myself, but which is when you have money is power to a certain extent on earth, right here, right now, and you have a certain amount and you don't touch it, that amount is alive. It has like its power in it, and you don't spend it, it gains a certain amount of power. This is just a weird theory I have. I can't prove it.
Right.
You know.
Okay, number 27, I will not follow the suggestions that if nothing is risked, nothing can be gained. I will know in advance and be in control of any venture. No risks.
Right. You don't take risks. They say, oh, you don't take a risk, you never get anywhere in life. Baloney. Magnetism teaches differently. If you don't know the outcome, don't do it. If you have any doubt at all, don't do it.
Okay. Number 28, when I have enough wealth, I will not seek an unnecessary excess at the risk of my health, my self-respect, or my name.
Right. You understand that?
Yeah.
If you have enough to live, don't, if you don't have 20 minutes in the morning to do your meditation, you're not in connection with what gave you birth. You're not having your mother either.
Right.
You're not in connection with it.
Right.
And that's what we're here for,
Mm-hmm.
as you will see in Course 5A. All right, next one.
Okay, 29, I will not go on creating a great fortune to be left to those who will not need it or will use it to become indolent.
Right. Right.
30, if I consider charity at all, I will not contribute to those organizations whose expenses absorb more than 50% of the monies collected.
Right. I would not. I once worked for an organization raising money many years ago. I wouldn't do that now, but and it was supposed to be for a wonderful thing to help the people, but they absorbed more than 50%. This is mostly a trick.
Right.
Presently, I make no donations. I mean, people on the street begging money, I don't give them money because, first of all, I'm contributing. This is the United States of America. If a person doesn't have a job, and don't give me the gloom and doom of the present that there's no work, that's baloney. If a person doesn't have a job and is not responsible for himself, I'm not going to give him anything because I'm preventing him from being responsible for himself. That's a lesson he's got to learn. Now, if I see an old lady on the street, I look at her face and she doesn't have a leg, I might give her something. Because at that age it's hard to get a job without a leg, makes it bad. I do donate a little bit. I don't believe in giving big donations. I do contribute a little bit to the classical music station. And I don't believe too much in, what's the word? In
Donations?
Giving,
Charity?
Charity. Yeah. For example, you know, people give money for the Cancer Society, for this society, and this for that. Cancer Society, what? That's just making money. They don't do anything for cancer.
So you really have to know who you're giving your donation or money to. You know.
Yeah. I made a $500 donation to the Boston Conservatory.
Right.
because they helped me.
Right.
Every semester I'd get kicked out. I had no money. But Mr. Alphin, the director, he gave me a little job cleaning the piano, sweeping the floor, and I was able to finish the course.
Right.
I donated another $500 to an organization that helped me somewhat. But there's special cases. Yeah.
What are we on, 30? If I consider charity at all, I will not contribute to those organizations whose expenses absorb more than 50% of the monies
Right,
collected.
we did that one.
Okay, we already did that. 31, instead of usual charity, I will, whenever possible, help worthy people to help themselves and thereby become independent of charity.
Yeah.
Right.
By helping, if you think you can help him to help himself, by all means go ahead.
32, I will not tie up money for inheritance that can be put into use in my lifetime if such money is not needed by my heirs.
Yeah. That's pretty self-explanatory.
33, I will not in any way antagonize those who are sincerely trying to lead moral lives in the name of religion.
Right. Now, this is important to talk about. Some people will believe in religion. Religion is an organized like a group, and that group, they have certain agreements. One religion says you don't eat meat on Friday, another one says blah, 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 blah. Okay. And some people believe all that stuff, okay? Now, I've done some research in that area, and I found out that some of the things that they teach have an actual pro-survival reason behind it. For example, eating meat on Friday, that has nothing to do with God. The church had a lot of power. They still do, but not as much as before, because man's mind is advancing so fast in seeing the truth. So, religion saw that these people were sick all the time, boils, cancer, all kinds of things, because they would gorge themselves on meat. And some of that meat was putrid. We're talking about 200 years ago, 300, 400 years ago. The meat was rotting, and that's all the people ate was meat. So they get sick all the time. So the church, knowing that the people fear God, said, God doesn't want you to eat meat on Friday. At least one day a week, they were without eating meat. So they got a few vegetables, and that'll help put in some of the vitamins into the bodies. That's it. Case closed. God has nothing to do with eating meat. I don't eat meat, but it's not because God said so.
Okay. Number 34. As belief in superstition is a form of fear, and fear is one of the greatest impediments to the development of magnetism, I will from this moment on, as long as I live, pay no attention to the popular claims of signs, good or bad, that are attached to various happenings.
Yeah, well, superstition started because people didn't understand certain things. So, for example, the number 13, it's an unlucky number. Well, that probably started in the fact that in mysticism, the number 12 is very important. That's why in my book, The Path of Hidden Knowledge, I have 12 sublime realms. 12 is the end of a complete physical and metaphysical cycle. And then it starts all over again with 1, which would be 13. So probably that's where it comes from. You know, people, something they don't understand, they turn it into superstition.
35, I will not allow myself to fall into mental weakness by entertaining the fear of ghosts, spirits, and occult phenomena, remembering that when the world was in its darkest period, All humanity was depressed by this fear, which grows less with the advance of knowledge and intelligence.
Right. So there's no point, if there are psychic beings or if there are ghosts, there might be, that's up to each person to find out, and I don't want to get into that subject right now. But there's nothing to be feared, because if you fear something, you're not there. That's why we're going to do the next drill, being there.
Right.
If you're there, totally there, you are observing. And anything that you observe, you might feel uncomfortable, but you're not going to run away with fear from it. So a magnetist learns to be always in the present moment, observing what is now transpiring. So that's
Okay,
all about.
very good. 36, I will
Now
not...
whether, excuse me, now whether there are ghosts, real ghosts or not, that's another story. I'll let you find out.
Okay. 36, I will not be swayed in my life by beliefs in supernatural happenings, fortune telling, trance channeling, or spirit phenomena, remembering that men and women who so believe are always retrograding in their affairs and losing their influence in the world. True, valid, and controlled research in this area may be an exception.
Right. Well, that's exactly what I did. I'm going to tell you. Years ago, many years ago, I did a quite thorough study of metaphysics, mysticism, religious principles, spirituality, and at one time in my life, I did a research on fortune tellers, including Spanish gypsies. And then I had that phobia. So this was a double process. I was trying to find out if there is anything in existence that could help me.
Right.
And also, I wanted to see what was going on. And what I found out was that yes, some people actually have an ability to see what's on the other people's minds. So do I. It's no big thing. I could put a shingle out there and call myself a fortune teller and make money. There are some people that are very sensitive, and they have a great ability of looking within themselves. To the extent that you know yourself, to that extent you will be able to read somebody else. So I did all that research, you name it, I tried it. One day I decided to be a fortune teller. I was playing at the Rose Coffee House in the North End in Boston, which is an Italian village. And I never had enough money. All my life I didn't have money. And so I decided on the break I could give readings to people. So everybody come to me, and I go from table to table, and they tell me, oh, they enjoyed it, blah, blah. Well, what are you doing these days? Well, I'm telling fortunes now on the break. Oh, yeah? So I started telling my first fortune. Two girls, and I was telling the fortune to one girl. I was so right on, she burst out crying. And that was the first experience and the last of my being a fortune teller.